HARK, we are here. It is time for another update to the Star Wars Unlimited meta. This past week, we had a live stream, which I talked a little bit about coming up in the last video. It did show up, and we got some stuff. Going into it, I expected that Jango was going to be suspended because he was a very popular leader and very good and kind of suppressing a lot of the other things that were in the meta. But instead of just suspending Jango, FFG decided to suspend 3 cards as part of their competitive update and talked a little bit about each of those cards. Let's get right into what was suspended and FFG's reasons why each of those cards was suspended. We've got here the images of the 3 cards, plus a little image down here of our developers and Xander, who were part of the live stream talking about the specific thing. As you can see, Jango Fett, Concealing a Conspiracy, was suspended. You can no longer use him as a leader in your deck in Constructed. Obviously, none of this affects Twin Suns. The next card that was suspended was Triple Dark Raid, our 3-cost Cunning Villainy Tactic event. And then also DJ Blatant Thief, 3-cost Cunning Resource Stealer in combination with Han Solo is a resource deficit for the opponent, given that you gain a resource and your opponent loses a resource. That's not great. But they did obviously showcase to us the reasons why. Jango Fett, it's everywhere. We saw a lot of Jango Fett represented. With the one tournament where it wasn't super hyper represented was the Bothan Network Invitational. But at 3 total SQ sector qualifiers, we did see a heavy presence of Jango Fett. And even though Jango Fett did not win the, I believe it was Liverpool sector qualifier, it did end up winning the other 2 sector qualifiers because Jango Fett is very strong. This obvious card is obvious. Unrestricted Exhaust is something that they apparently did not see being a problem, considering the fact that apparently while they were testing Jango Fett, they were also testing the game under the impression that Boba Fett would still exist. So unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that should have been seen immediately was not seen because they still had the big boogeyman of the meta at the time, Boba Fett, in the game design testing for Set 3 when that came out, which means anything that potentially comes up from Set 4, Set 5 that's problematic is not going to be seen for testing for quite some time thereafter. So it's an interesting way of being able to dedicate your playtesting time for the team that is playtesting this game. Or teams, who knows how many people are exactly playtesting the game. But Jango Fett, obvious problem. They got it, nipped it in the bud right off the bat. They allowed the meta to kind of figure out what was going on with the competitive season. They saw with 3 sector qualifiers, Jango dominating the meta. It's out of here. Goodbye. Before we get to Triple Dark Raid, let's talk about DJ. They did specifically dictate that the DJ combo with Han from SOR was too oppressive for multiple decks and actually filtering out a lot of control options, which should have been doing well against other decks like that. But it turned out to not be doing so because they were losing their resources and not being able to actually cast their cards. I've been playing Magic a lot. Play their cards to be able to counter the things that Han 1 was doing as a result of its gameplay, including DJ. So they did notice they had a couple of options. They decided to keep Tech because Tech is fairly interesting, but DJ was the direct problem and is only really a direct problem under Han leader. Banning Han, suspending Han, wasn't an option because they felt that without DJ, Han was relatively balanced. While with DJ, it was approaching levels of issues that potentially could even surpass Jango Fett in terms of the negative play experience after Jango being suspended. The big card here, and the explanation to me, the main focus of this video today is Triple Dark Raid. Now, I know a lot of people would say that this is a great suspension. I disagree, but I do understand why a lot of people are very ruffled by this specific card. There's one interaction, Triple Dark Raid into Devastator, that I think is probably the peak top end of what Triple Dark Raid is capable of, but the fact that there are so many different options that are available to it in combination with stuff like Jango Fett, it was oppressive. Moving forward, however, Triple Dark Raid only has a benefit in yellow decks that are running a lot of very good vehicles. And the reason why those decks can run those vehicles is because they have a huge benefit in Triple Dark Raid being able to pull those cards off the top of their deck. However, the main problem is that it's not a unit permanently on your board. It is a risk. You can potentially pull cards off the top 7 cards of your deck and not pull a good vehicle or pull a vehicle at all. It's rare, but it does happen, and that does give your opponent an opportunity to check the board state and be able to manage the game from that point on, because you did spend 3, you whiffed, and aren't able to get something good onto the board as a result of that. Yes, being able to Triple Dark Raid a Ruthless Raider or a Fett's Fire Spray or a Devastator or a War Juggernaut was very good in terms of what it could potentially do, but there is still that variance in the card itself. So one of the things that they specifically dictated to us is the reason why Triple Dark Raid needed to see a hit was its ubiquity in top decks in the format. Basically, it was 100% representation in all of the top 8 decks, 3 copies in each deck of the decks that made it to the Milan finals, the Milan top 8 for the sector qualifier, and it was a 3 of in every deck that could run it in yellow that was running it in the other sector qualifiers. Jango runs 3 of these no matter what, but the fact that Piet could get away with running 3 of these was also a very interesting design. And I take issue with this specific point in design, because by saying its ubiquity, 3 copies in every deck that could potentially run it was running it, means that the developers might be potentially looking at cards as staples not being a good thing for the meta or for the gameplay. And I think that's a very risky thing to do. And when you do cut things like Triple Dark Raid, you need to start paying attention to the other things that do similar stuff. Obviously, the best comparison is Sneak Attack. Sure, it gets defeated at the end of the round. You're not going to be able to use its when played ability again on the next round or be able to do stuff, and you're not searching off the top card of your deck. But Sneak Attack is more reliable, it's cheaper, and it does allow you to still get the benefits of when played, and then also when defeated. Sneak Attack into a Ruthless Raider is huge. A Sneak Attack into a Devastator is still going to be a good play because that's still a ton of damage that you can present to your opponent. I believe it was 13 damage total that your opponent's going to have to figure out what to deal with on that Devastator attack, because it's going to be attacking on that next action. Is Triple Dark Raid too good because it drops something ready? Is it too good because it does something cheaper? Is it too good because it could potentially give you a resource you didn't have otherwise? The way that they explained it wasn't sufficient for me to believe that it's okay to be suspended. Triple Dark Raid being out of the format means that you can't be surprised and you cannot surprise. So it's actually on both sides. Players don't have to worry about a Triple Dark Raid coming down, and you don't have to worry about whiffing off the top of a Triple Dark Raid, but there's still other options for Cunning that makes it so that it's still the best aspect in the game and can still do unhinged things that it probably shouldn't be able to do in a game where it's based off of I do thing, you do thing, which we've talked about before. We talked about in the Jango Fett problem video. I'm going to talk about it until it gets fixed, which it's never going to get fixed, so I'm going to talk about it every single time. I dislike the argument that its ubiquity in decks was reason enough to have it suspended, because if we get other cards that are ubiquitous but maybe not necessarily as significant of an issue as Triple Dark Raid, are those going to get banned? When set 5 drops, are they going to immediately suspend Force Throw because they know it's going to be ubiquitous with Force decks, or are they going to wait until we see 24 copies of the card in the top 8 decks that are represented that might all be running red in some form or fashion, because Force Throw is a very good card and you just quadrupled the amount of Force users that are going to be available? That's a guesstimation on what's going to happen. There's going to be a lot more Force users. We're going to easily double the amount of Force users we have with this next set. As everybody knows, Force Throw, very, very good card. A 1-cost, discard a card from hand. You can either use it on yourself to be able to pop something if you've got a Force user, or use it on your opponent and hope you could pop something, hope they have to discard something that is relevant. Whatever the case may be, everybody knows that Force Throw is a very good card. Is that going to get suspended if it gets too ubiquitous? And this is why I worry about the way that they might be designing these suspensions for cards. Do I think that it's okay that Triple Dark Raid is suspended in the format? Yes. Do I think it was a good decision to suspend it? No. Is it something that's going to be fine moving forward? Yes. It's not that big of an issue. This isn't something that's like personally affecting me. My pet card has been eliminated. My pet cards are all for decks that are terrible, so I'm never going to have to worry about those things getting suspended. But I did have to make decisions in decks that I was playing Triple Dark Raid to change them into other things, which I have. And honestly, I think my decks have actually come out better, not having to worry about what Triple Dark Raid is going to flip off the top of the deck. It is what it is. Of note, the current 4 cards that are suspended, Boba Fett, Jango Fett, Triple Dark Raid, and DJ, they all share one aspect: Cunning, yellow, very strong. And even with all this stuff being knocked out of the system, knocked out of the game, it's still going to be a very strong color moving forward. JTL Boba Fett with yellow is still very good with its way of being able to do indirect damage. Quinlan Voss Tarkin Town, still absolutely an incredible deck to play. Cad Bane Tarkin Town, I think, is going to be the majority replacement for Jango Fett, because you still get those pings that can still do interesting stuff for you. Just lay a little bit more into Underworld than you were before. And yellow is still a very strong color moving forward, even with these things being removed. The meta should be healthier, but it is still going to be, it's still yellow's way to reign. And with Qui-Gon Jinn coming out with a way of being able to abuse one plate effects consistently throughout each round, we're probably going to see more yellow decks moving forward. So there you have it. We do have Richmond coming up a week from this coming Saturday, the weekend after WrestleMania. Store showdowns should be happening soon. We have planetary qualifiers happening soon, all kinds of other interesting stuff. And then we've got some major, still some major events, two 1Ks and a 2K at the beginning of May at SCG Con in Minneapolis. And then we have the regional qualifier at the end of May. Lots of testing is going to be happening. I think the meta will probably solidify after Richmond, but before the regional qualifier in Minneapolis, because there's only so much that's going to happen. We're not going to see a lot of competitive changes. We got our big competitive changes with banning of Jango and DJ and Triple Dark Raid. I already know what I'm going to be piloting to the regional over there in Minneapolis. It's going to be my Boba 4/yellow. I was thinking about potentially playing Hera to try to get that top 64 showcase, but I already have a showcase. You can see it up there. Same thing for Boba Fett, but I think Boba Fett gives me the best opportunity of being able to actually win games. And I just don't think Hera has what it takes to be able to day 2 anything. I wish she was better than she is, but she's not. There's nothing much you can really do about it until they release overpowered Spectre cards, if they ever do. My Boba Fett build has been updated. The video itself is outdated, but the deck list in the video itself has been updated multiple times, so you can check out my updates there so you can see exactly what I'm playing and try to counterplay me, which would be stupid because I'm not that good. I did take some tips from both Wooooo and the Garbage Rollers and some of the stuff that I've seen that they have been doing. So we saw some things around, still have some tech choices of my own, but should be fun going forward. Lots of competitive stuff. Once the previews start happening for Legends of the Force beyond what we've already seen, I feel like the testing teams are going to have to really get in on it, especially after the regional qualifier, since that's going to be the last major competitive event. That one and the one that's happening in Europe, which I don't remember when that is. After those happen, we're likely going to see people switching over to Set 5 testing because, like I said, there's only 2 weeks from release of Legends of the Force to prepare for the Galactic Championship. And while I'm not playing in the competitive event at the Galactic Championship, it's still going to be necessary for those side events that are going to be happening. And I don't know if they're still going to pull the trigger on a sector qualifier at the Galactic Championship starting day 2, but we'll have to see what ends up happening with all that fun stuff. But that's all we have this week. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate each and every one of you. We'll see you next time. Remember to like and comment on this video. Let me know what you think of the suspensions. Let me know what you think of meta decks moving forward in the Set 4 meta, as it's going to happen and fly very quickly over the course of the next basically 45, 50 days. So it should be very interesting. Thank you for joining me, everybody. Appreciate each and every one of you. Subscribe to the Star Wars Limited channel for all of your Star Wars Limited needs. Got to do the YouTube plugs. That's all we've got. Thank you. We'll see you next time, and I'll see you in the stars.